And the goal is to hurt the neck, but also to shake his brain and cause a knockout. If they're strong enough, they can take the next shot. So we want to shake his brain.
Hurt the neck, shake the brain. Okay, first let me be clear, I do not want this channel to turn into some kind of a hate or trolling channel, not my intention. But this video did pop up a day or two ago, and yeah, it's got millions of views and 180,000 likes. And so I felt it was rather important to address this, because there are 180,000 people out there that do not have the filters to know what is good and not good self-defense advice. I don't claim to be, well, I don't know, maybe I'm an authority. Look, I've been teaching self-defense for almost 2 decades. Yes, it's 2 decades. I've been training martial arts for about 30 years, teaching for about 20 plus, and had a good portion of my overall career teaching in Shanghai and Hong Kong, with a strong emphasis on self-defense instruction. I was one of the first to do women's self-defense workshops in both cities. So I take this seriously. Does that mean that you should take my word as gospel? Absolutely not. But what I'm going to try to do in this video is provide a few filters. Assess them for yourself. You should not, when it comes to your own safety in your own life, nobody else is the authority but you. You should listen to those that maybe have a little bit of experience in the domain of self-defense, maybe some education, martial arts. But the biggest thing that you can do, most important thing, is to acquire a set of filters for yourself through which you can assess new techniques. It's critical, in fact. A lot of people will do if-then scenarios. If they do this, you should do this. And they look at specific, what you might call combinations or techniques for self-defense. While some of this does need to be trained and practiced, what you'll find is the most critical thing to do is acquire filters along the lines of strategic engagement, strategies for self-defense. Strategies are robust. They allow you to kind of, in real time, adjust and adapt to volatile circumstances. When you're only focused on techniques, look, there are no situations that will comply to your perception of what a fight should look like, or how technique should be implemented, or what kind of technique you have to defend against in this way and do that kind of a thing. It doesn't work like that. Self-defense is primarily chaos, and I did find some other good, snazzy clips to show you guys maybe in a couple other videos that maybe shows a different side of these. Good insights into real self-defense. With this video, though, I do want to say Jake has been, I think the guy's personality is awesome. I think he's a super sincere martial artist. It's a motorcycle. I think he's a super sincere martial artist and, conscientious practitioner. You can tell he's got good athleticism, good physique. He's got good technique, good strength. But when it comes to self-defense, nobody should get away with teaching stuff that is misleading. This puts people's lives at stake, and I think it's critical to give you guys the right kind of information. So let's go through this. Now, to analyze this first combination that he's got, a couple of things. You might be able to get away with I don't even know what you call this kind of a block. You'll find similar blocks in most martial arts systems, but what Jake is doing, that he's got 2 things that are going on very strange here. One is you can tell the angle of the elbow is outside the blocking arm or the blocking wrist. To my knowledge, there are no martial arts that do such things with the exception of Wing Chun, and that is only when it's elevated with the intention of either sticking or rolling that technique. But hard style blocking, which is what he's doing, which you find in Korean styles, Chinese styles, you can't do it because this is relying on the strength of the rotator cuff to resist the force of somebody's, the centripetal force of a hook punch is extraordinary. I mean, you see guys do these, these boxing, what do you call them? The kind of, what is it, pounds per square something or another? I don't know. It measures the punching force of a punch. And these guys are getting, I mean, it's like getting hit by, a baseball bat in some cases. I mean, it's extraordinary force. You're not going to stop it if the elbow is pointed out slightly and the wrist or the hand is inside that. what's going to happen is that's going to bend it in and slam your own hand, or the strike is just going to get through. It's a terrible way to block in general. What's critical, you've got two options. Both of them need the elbow inside, closer to the rib cage. He's talking about turning in toward the wrist, toward the assailant strike. May or may not be okay, depending, right? Another way to look at this is to actually keep that structure, turn away from it. And what this does is it sends that force down the arm, and you can base it through the body and into the legs. That's generally the type of block I teach for self-defense. The way that he's blocking here, he's assuming he's going to be moving into the next technique, which is a strike to the throat.
Now at the same time, I'm going to use this snake hand, the V part of my hand right here, to stun him right in the neck. And the goal is to hurt the neck, but also to shake his brain and cause a knockout. If they're strong enough, they can take the next shot. So we want to shake his brain.
Okay, so what he's doing here is a basic counterattack. I'm going to analyze a specific attack in just a second because this is juicy stuff. But there's two possibilities. One, you are caught off guard by a strike. You're relying on prior training and your reflexes to take over, and that would make sense of a block and a strike occurring kind of on off beats, right? And we talk about rhythms and beats. This is on the whole beat, right? And then you've got half beats, and then you've got same time beats. This could be mixed up in a variety of ways, but this is a simple 1-2 kind of a block strike combination. Now, in theory, if this did not get you caught entirely off surprise, which it didn't in this scenario, he's looking at his opponent, he's got his guard up, he's ready for the strike, presumably. In a case like this, if you're ever strong enough, skilled enough to block an incoming power strike like this, you are good enough to counter strike at the same time. There's no reason for these techniques to be offset. And this particular combination has the illusion of saying, well, he's going to strike once, boom, he gets hit on the offbeat, and then he's going to strike again. So the assumption here is that he's got a slow, half-retarded opponent that is just kind of waiting for strikes to come in. Doesn't happen. Strikes come in fast and one after the other if you're dealing with somebody that wants to take you down. There isn't the time to execute this combination, okay? So, to the second attack.
Cause a knockout. If they're strong enough, they can take the next shot. So we want to shake his brain.
He's got the webbing. What does he call this?
Knockout. If they're strong enough, they can take the next shot. So we want to shake his brain.
Hurt the neck, shake the brain. I mean, if you want to shake the brain, you could just hit the head anywhere on the head. So this technique that he's using the webbing of the hand. I've never seen that application, and I don't believe in that application for the very reason that he is also giving us examples in a couple of minutes of how to resist that strike through tensing the neck muscles. You're using soft tissue to strike something that can be reinforced. It's not an ideal strategy, but look, there are systems that take trachea strikes. There's two ways to look at this, and they're relatively, self-defense. We might look at two vitals along the neck. We've got the trachea, and we've got the carotid artery. That's what you take your pulse with. This is what sends air through the body, right? From the mouth and the nose into the body. So if you're striking the trachea, you could use a technique like this. A ridge hand is what we would normally call it, where you would turn the hand even farther out and use that ridge on the foreknuckle to strike the trachea. Highly effective technique. It will collapse somebody's trachea if you've got a halfway decent strike. It's a very dangerous strike. The other way to do it is you're going to wrap that technique around to strike the carotid artery with that same knuckle. The former is easier than the latter. Both can work, but what he's doing here is neither. So I don't fully understand why he's doing it the way he's doing it, because if you look at this line, that strike comes in, he's protecting the trachea with the webbing of his hand. That's not where the impact is going to come. And if he actually connects with the side of the neck with the foreknuckle, there's no inward penetration. So by all measures, this technique is not going to be highly effective, which is why I think he talks about in a second how you need to tense the neck to reinforce it. But let's get beyond this, and let's assume, like he does, that he just threw a neck strike to somebody's trachea, and it did not stop them for a second because they're able to throw a left hand hook
stun the neck.
Right after.
The second hook comes in, duck at elevation change.
They're strong
While
enough
I'm
they can
down
take the
here,
next
both
shot and
my
shake the
fists
brain.
together with palms facing each
Block.
other, hit
Stun
him
the
right in the
neck.
midsection. Right inside.
Second hook comes in. So who are you fighting? Is this Mike Tyson? I mean, you're fighting a guy. You just struck somebody in the trachea. His follow-up is another hook punch. If you're ever fighting somebody and you strike soft tissue on their body with a strong tool and they continue to fight, this is not a good match for you. You should hightail it the hell out of there. But fortunately, he missed, right? Thank goodness. So he missed on the hook. And now he's hitting the midsection. So normally we would not describe the lats as a midsection. It's not a vital target. Look, on anybody, he's got a guy here that's very average, if not below average type of body or build. Presumably, if somebody's confident enough to strike you on the streets, they have some level of athleticism, or they're super drunk. In either case, they've either got reinforced lats or they're not going to feel much. But look, striking to somebody's lats on the back and on the side, this is not a vital strike in any way whatsoever. If you sunk that bottom fist and went for the floating rib, maybe. But the guy is turned and you've got nothing there. So why this would be a follow-up technique, I also don't fully understand.
Okay, 1-2 combination. 1-2 body. Again. 1-2 body. Again. 1-2 body. As hard as you can. 1-2 body. Let's show it one time in full speed and slow-mo.
Full speed and slow-mo. Strike, duck, double punch. Okay. So in that technique, in the full-on strike, he was able to strike to the front of the midsection, the floating ribs, possibly the solar plexus. That's a little bit better. But look, if you're in a position where you're going to land a double strike like this, it's not that serious. If you're that close to an opponent, you should duck in and go for a technique that is not just meant to stun or snap into the midsection. Look, if anybody like the second guy that he's going to work with he's got a belly on him, it is hard to get through that much tissue, that much fat. If the guy's muscular, if he's super fat, double punches to the midsection need to be highly targeted. It's not like you're just going to sneak these in there, and you're much better off using a technique where if you're stepping in, get your full body weight behind that technique and work in with the elbows. One elbow, full body rotation, just slamming the midsection. If you can get precise with that, floating rib, solar plexus. But the assumption here, and this is one that's going to keep coming up, this is a highly artificial scenario, right? It's one that is going to, this is a wholly random set of an attacking sequence and a defense sequence. Is this ever going to turn out like this? Absolutely not, never in a million years. I would have to work to try to think of something that would be as contrived as this, as an attack-defense sequence. Whoo-wee! All right, so where are we? Second combination.
Second move is a common technique done in almost every fighting system of Chinese Kung Fu, and it's the sidekick. I love the sidekick so much. It's a very powerful kick, and it's hard to block. It's hard to block a kick that's coming straight at you. Right? I think front kicks and round kicks are easier to block. So the side kick comes straight in.
Side kick is tough to block.
It's a hard one to block, especially if it's done with that spin. So spinning side kick is one of my favorite techniques to implement in the fight.
Okay, so let's make it harder.
Any Chinese system of martial arts. And I got my man Andrew
now
here.
let's call it a self-defense technique.
Thank you. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna fake before I kick. And that's the key, is all the fakes. Sometimes in fighting, just your eyeballs can make you 10% better than your opponent if you're good at directing them somewhere with your body language. As we're about to fight, I'm gonna bring the hands up, try to raise him up and make him think I'm going for his face. As soon as he raises up, I spinning side kick right to the body. So you guys can get with your partner in your school and do this about 10 times each person. Get used to the timing that it takes to raise up and then go for it. And that's the proper time right there.
Skip ahead to his special demo because this one is not far off.
Again. And then once you get it down and your accuracy is pretty good, then work on the proper timing and cadence, because timing is everything.
Step in, side kick.
So instead of it going fake,
full speed and slow-mo now. Hands raised, spinning back kick. Okay, so look guys, of the techniques that Jake demonstrates in this is probably the most reasonable. And it's not something that, unless you are a highly skilled kicker, should be attempting in self-defense. Like anytime you pick 1 foot up off the ground, and I say this as somebody who kicking has been one of my fortes in martial arts, anytime that you pick up a foot from the ground you are eliminating all 4 tools at once, right? So let's say I'm a boxer. Let's say I'm throwing one technique, or I'm an MMA fighter, and I'm striking. This one technique does not eliminate the other tools that I might have, right? The head, the elbows, the fists, the knees, the feet. As soon as you pick up one foot, you've taken away all of your tools. So you don't do that. And I mean, if you pick up a foot, it does not miss your opponent. You have to have that kind of a psychology behind it. Otherwise, you are done if the guy has halfway decent skills, right? So in this, he's doing a couple things. One thing is right, one thing is wrong. So this distraction that he's using is not a bad idea, okay? And I used similar things and taught similar things to this over the years. As a distraction, I would generally not use both my hands just in case, but to throw one hand up as a distraction for the spinning back kick or even the side kick is highly effective. People's hands will tend to follow your eyes and your own hands if you're doing a quick motion. The problem here is that Jake is too close to his opponent. Now, there are people in the UFC that have used the spinning back kick. I don't recall a single time where they have used this technique in this kind of a range or even defensively. It's been commonly used as an offensive strike while somebody is walking down their opponent, and that makes sense because it allows you to bridge the gap in a way that is a little bit deceptive. It's a fast technique, powerful technique, and it creates more distance as you strike. The problem with Jake's technique here,
thank you,
I'll play that one more time, is that he's in striking range, right? So your opponent's just standing there. I mean, if this is self-defense, not a ring match, not sparring in a dojo, right? This is how it might look if you're sparring with somebody that is at your level or way underneath you, where you're not worried about their range, you're not worried about their techniques. You might employ a technique like this in this kind of a range. But if you're on the streets, he's already in striking range. There is no way that this spinning technique is going to be effective at that range, okay? And you know it is by his footwork. What he does is if you watch his feet, he offsets the technique by stepping off his center line.
Third move you had.
So this is really common in all these techniques. He's throwing reps here. He's not even squaring up between these sets. But his rear foot is already behind him in his center line, meaning this would be a normal fighter stance, front foot, back foot. He's setting up in a linear fashion, which is a tell. This is a kicker. There's no way you would stand like this as a striker. It doesn't make any sense. He's setting his foot up already behind that, so he's setting up the line for the back kick, which is great if you know you're going to do the back kick all the time. And if you're not, what are you doing, Jake? And so he's setting it up. But the other thing that happens, and the way that people will set this technique up, these are my feet. You step across the line, and then you have a linear shoot or a straight line to the target with the back foot. This is how you should use it as an attacking step, right? And the benefit of doing it as an attack is you can hide that crossover, that line cross, as a step. So if I'm back here, I'm stepping in, I'm crossing my line here before I spin. This is okay. It's very difficult to read that line cross and that spin if it's done quickly. And it's tough to defend against. But at this range, his opponent would need to take one step a few inches forward and the kick would be nullified. You could step a few inches back, the kick will be nullified, or just to either side. I mean, there's no reason that this range should ever be utilized for a spinning kick unless it is a high heel kick, a high spinning heel kick, and you are the shit. But this is not a range for a back kick, so keep that in mind. Let's go to technique number 3.
Third move you have to be proficient in is being able to take the shot, not just in the brain, but also in the neck. The soft parts of your body have to turn hard. In Chinese Kung Fu, every finger must be a dagger, every arm must be a spear, and the entire body must be a lethal weapon, not only for offense, but for defense as well. So if my friend Andrew here has the snake hand, he's gonna make that thing hard. He's gonna give me one shot to the neck, and he's gonna go, Jake, can you take it?
Can you take it?
I can take that one.
All right.
Then a second shot. Good, and I got that one. So when you're playing with your partner, do one at a time and start slow and build it up over time. Don't obliterate your friend on the first day.
Striking the neck.
So third shot comes in. Good, I got that one. The fourth one. And I'm learning how to strengthen my neck. I'll have even more power to defend against those neck shots because of that.
You know how to strengthen the neck? Lift motherfucking weights. I mean, look, there's almost no way to strengthen these neck muscles to the point where you would resist a halfway decent strike to them, unless it is your livelihood. There are bodybuilders that have the musculature of the neck, and there are some Thai boxers I've trained with over the years that strengthen this through actually placing bands and weights, and they're actually doing neck exercises in both ways, right? They're doing them back and forward to really strengthen the musculature required to resist a clinch and also to resist incoming strikes. There are Chinese Kung Fu practitioners that will do stuff like this. But keep in mind, guys, a lot of the stuff there are assumptions around these types of techniques and tools that allow for you to know the strike is coming ahead of time. If you don't have your neck tense on impact, it doesn't make a difference. It's the same thing as if your stomach is relaxed and you get a solar plexus shot, you're going to be down for the count. I mean, it's impossible to toughen soft tissue to the point, the average person at least, I've seen and met some Shaolin monks that do extraordinary things blind, so they don't know when the strike is coming. You can toughen the trachea, you can strengthen the muscles. If we're talking about self-defense, this is not a one-shot defeats all type of scenario. There's going to be more strikes coming. So great, I've tensed here, but is my mind in the game? Am I ready for that next strike? The scenario is really crazy. So I had a coach in college that was a bit edgy, and he would constantly test his wife and strike her in different parts to make her tougher. And I always just thought to myself, like, I'll teach her to block. Like, there's no way, there is no amount of conditioning that a 120, 130 pound woman is going to be able to take on for herself that just some athletic adult male, in 160 to 250 pounds cannot forcefully overcome. This is just reality. Same thing with men. It's not just a woman thing, but in this case it happened to be a woman. And so you have to consider like the strategies behind these things. You could spend years toughening and strengthening your neck for one type of strike, or you could learn to block a little bit and evade it.
That right there is a worst case scenario. Okay, train the neck to become as hard as the arm, and you'll be a better fighter, especially for the defense.
Train the neck to become as hard as the arm. Train the neck to become as hard as the arm. Not possible, first of all. Second of all, again, the strike is shitty. He's striking with the webbing. Guys, this is not how a throat strike should occur. So he's strengthening his neck against an inferior type of strike. You need to be trained. It would be hard to execute this strike well as an untrained fighter. Yeah, okay. So let's move on a little bit.
Make his lips kiss his knee and get that monkey hook. Now, monkey back roll, end up on top, push away, create separation, and get out of there.
Time to roast this guy. So